Imagine for a second that you are walking along this really desolate stretch of beach. Or maybe, you're wandering through a dense, overgrown forest just miles and miles away from civilization.
Somewhere completely isolated.
Yeah, exactly. And you trip over something hard. So you dig it out and you realize you have actually stumbled upon a time capsule.
Oh, wow.
Right. Only when you pry this rusted lid open, it is not what you expect to find at all. It's not, a neatly folded newspaper from 50 years ago.
Right, or like a pristine photograph of a family.
Exactly. Or like one of those highly curated lists of optimistic predictions about flying cars and world peace. Instead, what you find inside is just this massive paradox.
How do you mean?
Well, it is equal parts a hyper-organized municipal archive, like something a city planner might build, and this chaotic, sprawling, almost feral modern art project.
That is quite the visual.
It really is, because you pull out a collection of discarded, stained coffee cups, and they're meticulously labeled with timestamps. You find scrawled, seemingly random notes, these deeply personal, emotional logs detailing private grief, all tied together with this incredibly complex system of physical strings and digital tags.
It sounds overwhelming, honestly.
It is, and you are looking at something that begs a massive question for you. In an era where we are absolutely drowning in endless, polished, hyper-curated information overload, what does it actually look like to build a raw, unvarnished digital footprint?
A footprint that isn't just a highlight reel.
Yes, a footprint that refuses to scream, look how perfect I am, but instead operates on its own aggressive mandate, which is messy, bold, human.
It is a profound question, and it's exactly the phenomenon we are exploring today in this deep dive.
I am so excited for this one.
Me too. We are looking at a digital space, really a living archive, that was highly active in the early summer of 2026. But to merely call it a website feels entirely inadequate.
Right. I mean, calling this a website is like calling the Great Wall of China a fence.
That's a great way to put it.
It technically fits the definition, but it completely misses the scale and the intent of the thing.
Precisely. So the space is called FizzStory EXP, and it was built by a creator named Riordan, who also operates under the moniker xLU.
Or the handle at Luda, Physis, right?
Yes, exactly. And what this creator has built is a living, breathing document of what they term recovery design in motion.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer scale and the density of the material we are diving into today is just staggering.
It really is dense.
We are talking about hundreds of cross-reference pages, hyper-specific tags, video logs, AI-generated reflections, physical objects that have been mapped to digital coordinates, and precise timestamps down to the exact minute of the day.
Down to the minute.
Yeah. But what makes this so infectiously fascinating to me isn't just the volume of data. It's the absolute unyielding rigor with which this creator treats their own life.
Oh, absolutely.
They are treating their own personal trauma, their ongoing recovery, and their minute-to-minute daily existence as if it were this high-stakes, multi-million-dollar architectural design project.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, to really grasp why this framework matters to anyone navigating the modern digital world, we have to establish the analytical engine operating underneath all this apparent chaos.
Right, because there is an engine.
There is. Lou Riordan isn't just randomly posting diary entries online to vent. The core thesis here, the methodology driving every single page of FizzStory EXP, is rooted in a highly specific academic and corporate framework.
And that's action design research, right? ADR.
Exactly, action design research.
I want to make sure I have a solid grasp on that, because ADR sounds like something a tech conglomerate uses to build software, not something a person uses to heal from trauma.
It does sound incredibly corporate.
So if I'm understanding it correctly, in the corporate or UX design world, action design research means you don't just sit in a room and theorize about a problem. You build a prototype, you deploy it into the real world, you watch how it breaks or succeeds when real people interact with it, and then you iterate. You are intervening in the problem in real time. Am I on the right track with that?
You are exactly on the right track. In traditional academia or software development, ADR is a methodology of building, intervening, and evaluating simultaneously.
Okay, that makes sense.
You don't wait for the perfect solution. You launch the imperfect solution and let the friction of the real world teach you what needs fixing.
Friction is a great word for it.
And what makes FizzStory EXP so revolutionary is that xLU has taken this rigorous, often sterile corporate framework and applied it to the deeply human, intensely messy process of psychological and emotional recovery.
So the prototype they're building and testing is themselves, or rather their own coping mechanisms.
Exactly. They're using digital architecture not to curate a personal brand for an audience, but to actively reclaim their own memory and their own participation in the physical world.
Wow.
The website itself is the intervention. It is the action in the action design research. They are building a system to survive, deploying it, seeing where their psychology breaks it, and then rebuilding it.
Which is such a counterintuitive way to view trauma recovery.
It really is.
Because usually we think of healing as this soft, gentle, almost passive therapeutic process. You talk, you reflect, you rest. But this is industrial.
Yes, industrial is the perfect word.
This is an engineering project applied to the human soul. And I smell before we can even begin to understand the specific art pieces or the stories or the tagged coffee cups that live inside the system, we really have to look at the blueprint.
We do.
We have to understand the architectural structure of the mind that built this space.
And the navigation of Fifth Story EXP is designed to jolt you awake. It is deeply intentional in its intensity. It employs a strict, brutalist web design.
And when we say brutalist, we mean that in the architectural sense, right? Like those massive, raw, concrete government buildings from the 1970s.
Precisely like those.
There are no smooth, rounded corners here. No pastel gradients. No soft drop shadows. And absolutely no frictionless user interfaces designed by an algorithm to keep you scrolling mindlessly to serve you targeted ads.
None of that. It is stark.
It's heavily text-based. It relies on a deeply tagged navigation system that feels almost aggressive. I mean, every page is full of blunt commands like wait for ting or go to random set or the ever-present buppies off.
Yes, it does not guide you gently.
No, it demands that you figure out its logic.
And organizing all of this intense existence are 4 main lanes. The creator has categorized their entire life into 4 stark structural pillars.
Let's walk through them because this categorization is just fascinating. First up, you have the ELB.
The LLab is the research and infrastructure wing. This is the meta layer of the site.
Meta layer.
Right. It is where the brutal website in motion is actively analyzed by the creator. It houses the systemic overviews, the reflections on the ADR process, and the literal how-to guides for understanding the complex tagging system of the archive itself.
So it's kind of like the control room.
Exactly. It is the control room, where the creator steps back and observes the machine they are building.
So if the AB is the control room, the next lane is the living room. That is life. And the site defines this lane as the personal, people, kind of private-focused life and living stuff.
Yes. The life section is where the raw emotional core resides. This is where we find what they call the scrolly stories.
The scrolly stories, I love that.
Right. These are the nonlinear, often fragmented narratives of what actually happened during the trauma and the recovery. And crucially, this lane contains a massive subsection called #SayWhatWeAre, which is an archive defined as sayings of things said.
We are definitely going to dig deeply into the Say What-Fi section later because the way they tag human thought is wild. But moving to the third pillar, we have play.
Play, yes.
The site defines this lane as artifacts, experiments, and tagged chaos. It's the creative, tactile space.
And we cannot overstate how vital play is in the context of psychological recovery.
Really? Why is that?
Well, when a human being undergoes severe trauma or prolonged survival mode stress, the capacity for play is often the very first cognitive function to shut down.
That makes total sense. You're just focused on surviving.
Exactly. So reclaiming the ability to experiment, to make art, to engage with tagged chaos is a monumental milestone. This lane houses the physical objects, the art pieces, the tangible anchors of memory, and what the creator calls cache in motion.
Cache in motion.
Yes, it is the space where abstract pain is transformed into physical, interactive matter.
And finally, the fourth pillar is work. This is the public-facing hustle. This is where the creator's intellectual property lives, the methods of the madness, and a really interesting concept called the RATART auction art space.
The interface with the economy.
Right. It seems to be the zone where the deeply personal internal process has to interface with the unforgiving public economy. So you have these 4 distinct lanes: lab, life, play, and work. And as I was reviewing the sources and looking at the structure, a very specific image kept coming to my mind.
Oh, I'd love to hear the analogy.
Well, looking at the stark, text-heavy, heavily commanded structure of Fifth Story EXP, it feels exactly like standing in front of the Centre Pompidou in Paris.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Or really any avant-garde building where the architect made the deliberate choice to take all the internal guts, the plumbing pipes, the electrical wiring, the massive HVAC ducts, the elevator shafts, and put them entirely on the outside of the exterior walls, completely exposed to the elements.
That is a highly accurate visual translation of what Riordan has done digitally.
Right. Because when you first glance at a building like that or a website like this, it looks like an absolute
Oh,
catastrophe.
looks like a
It
mess.
looks messy, unfinished, hostile, and brutal. But when you stop and actually trace the path of the brightly colored pipes, you realize it is hyper-organized. Every single wire goes exactly where it needs to go to keep the building functioning.
Exactly.
Which leads me to a major pushback, or at least a paradox I'm struggling to resolve.
Let's hear it.
Why intentionally brand the site with words like messy, brutal, and chaos? Because behind this chaotic aesthetic, there is clearly a meticulous, highly structured, obsessively logged system operating.
An obsessive system.
I mean, the timestamps alone show a level of precision that borders on the fanatical. So why dress up a perfectly functioning, hyper-organized system in the aesthetic of a bold mess?
That paradox is the absolute psychological key to understanding this entire endeavor. To answer that, we have to look deeper at what brutalist web design represents as a reaction to modern culture.
Okay.
In the early 1990s, the internet was raw. It was just text, hyperlinks, and basic HTML. It was functional.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Over the last 15 to 20 years, the internet has been paved over with this slick, corporate, frictionless veneer. Everything on your phone is designed to look effortless, perfect, and easy.
The complete Instagramification of human existence. I mean, even our private communications are auto-completed by AI to sound more polite and polished now.
Exactly. Now, consider the reality of severe trauma, housing instability, and psychological breakdown. Trauma is not slick.
No, not at all.
It is not frictionless. It is violently disruptive, and it is profoundly imperfect.
Yeah.
By utilizing a brutalist digital design, by categorizing their life into these stark buckets and leaving the technological wires exposed, the creator is actively rejecting the societal demand for perfectionism.
Ah, I see.
In trauma recovery, perfectionism is very often a defense mechanism. It's a desperate attempt to control a terrifyingly uncontrollable world by making sure everything on the surface looks flawless.
Oh, that makes so much sense, because if you present a perfect facade, no one can see that you are drowning underneath it.
Precisely.
So the brutalism is a deliberate defense against the pressure to heal perfectly and quietly.
Yes. By explicitly mandating that the space is messy, bold, human, and declaring it a process of recovery design in motion, the creator is giving themselves psychological permission to be a work in progress.
That's incredibly liberating.
The meticulous tagging, the timestamps down to the minute, like writing at 1414, hashtag 2014-60524, that provides the internal control and stability the nervous system craves. That is the necessary architecture.
But the presentation of it.
The presentation of it as a bold mess is the release valve. It is a public declaration that says, I have system for my survival, but I refuse to make my survival palatable, pretty, or easily consumable for your comfort.
That is such an empowering stance. I am allowed to be complicated. It really makes you evaluate the boundaries in your own life. If you look at how most of us live digitally, the lines between our lab, our space for deep learning and growth, and our play are completely blurred.
Oh, entirely blurred.
The work bleeds into the life via late-night emails and Slack notifications until everything is just one endless, stressful, gray feed.
Exactly.
But xLU has built hard, concrete borders. And if that is the architecture of the space, I want to pivot to what actually populates it. Let's look inside those play and work sectors. Let's talk about the physical objects that the system has swallowed and transformed into anchors.
This brings us to the artifacts of survival. This is the philosophical realm of hashtag RATART.
RATART. The site formally defines it as tagged artifacts made from trash, treasure, the mundane, and the magnificent. And right away, the creator establishes a crucial, incredibly stark dichotomy within this category.
Yes, a very clear split.
There are two distinct classifications of RATART. You have RATART tings, and you have RATART shit.
It is a beautifully blunt categorization. Let's examine the mechanics of the tings first.
So tings are objects of permanence. They are meant to be kept, meant to be shipped, meant to be held in physical space. They carry weight. And there is one specific example detailed in the archive that absolutely floored me. The buckbayoots.
The buckbayoots are arguably the most potent physical manifestation of Riordan's journey documented on the site.
Let's trace the geography and the history of these boots, because the metadata alone reads like the outline of an epic novel. We are talking about two pairs of Timberland PRO buckskin boots. The source text tells us they were acquired through Amazon jobs during the New York drop of something the creator calls the Home to Homeless to Homeland Tour of 2021.
You need to pause just on that phrase, home to homeless to homeland tour.
It's heavy.
That is not a casual descriptor. Sociologically and psychologically, that implies a period of profound instability, a complete loss of base security, and a subsequent desperate search for a new grounding.
And the physical geography these boots covered is vast. The site tracks their movement from PHX, which we can safely infer is Phoenix, Arizona, all the way to NYC, New York City, and eventually across the Atlantic to LMK, Limerick, and Ireland.
An incredible journey.
But it's not just a travel log of flights and train rides. The archive explicitly states that these boots were worn relentlessly through what the creator calls the 2022 to 2025 bottom-out/dropout X.
The bottom-out, dropout experience. 3 years.
3 full years of bottoming out, wearing these exact two pairs of boots. And now, the archive notes, they have carried the creator into the ongoing rebirth phase, a period heavily tagged throughout the site as #BackToPhys.
Right.
The text confirms that both pairs remain in the artist's daily rotation. They are described as still bubbling with seasonal tags, wear, and story updates. But it's the final sequence of the description that really hit me.
Which part?
It reads, tagged, worn, lived, reworn, relived, logged. The process is visible.
The process is visible. That phrase is the absolute heartbeat of what makes a RATART ting so vital. Those boots ceased to be mere footwear the moment they entered the ADR system.
They became something else entirely.
Through the relentless friction of the road, through the immense geography they traversed, and through the literal physical bottoming out of the creator's life, the leather and the rubber have been transmuted into undeniable evidence of survival. They are forensic proof that when everything else collapsed, the creator kept walking.
It's powerful because it takes this invisible internal struggle and gives it a physical texture you can actually touch. And it isn't limited to wearable items.
No, not at all.
Another ting listed in the archive is the rat nest art trap. This is described as a participatory interactive sculpture that utilizes an entire 1970 Galaxy mobile home. It currently holds a status of bubbling and is located in the RATART auction art space.
A mobile home transformed into an art piece. Again, we see this recurring thematic preoccupation with transients, with alternative housing, and with the concept of creating a physical space where society dictated there should be none.
We also see more traditional mediums being pulled into the system. There's a Canvas project tag HPY-XMIS plus COX chaos code. It utilizes acrylic, spray paint, and oil. But again, the physical medium is secondary to the psychological intent.
Exactly.
The description defines the painting as a mechanism for giving chaos a zip code.
Giving chaos a zip code. You would be hard-pressed to find a more perfect distillation of the entire Phys Story EXP ethos, taking the overwhelming, formless, terrifying chaos of severe trauma and assigning it strict coordinates.
Giving it boundaries.
Yes, making it manageable by pinning it to a highly specific place, time, and physical object.
Which naturally brings us to the other half of the RATART philosophy. We've explored the tings, the permanent anchors, the boots, the mobile homes. But here's where it gets really interesting and where I actually struggle a bit. We have to look at the other classification, RATART shit.
Yes, the less glamorous but equally crucial side of the system. The site defines ESIT as temporary surfaces, passing objects, scraps, drops, packaging, transit residue, and disposable artifacts.
Transit residue, and the specific examples provided in our source material are 2 items labeled the Snaky Cup and B-Day Treats.
Coffee cups.
Yes, these are quite literally disposable, compostable paper coffee cups. The Snaky Cup is described in the text as a sneaky treat that was purchased when coffers were bare in Munster, Ireland. The B-Day Treats cup is noted to have the words happy birthday, happy scrawled on it. What the creator has done here is take a permanent marker, tag these literal pieces of garbage with an intricate code, and log them into the brutalist digital archive with a level of precision that is almost unsettling.
The precision is key.
I mean, for the B-Day Treats cup alone, the archive lists a GOT on timestamp at 15.45, a tag on timestamp at 16.10, and an exact trash on timestamp at 16.14, all occurring on April 28, 2026.
There is an 8-minute window between the moment the cup is tagged as art and the moment it is thrown into the trash. And yet the data of its existence is immortalized forever in the system.
And this is where I really have to push back on the methodology, because I look at the buck buttes and I completely understand. Those boots walk through 3 years of a dropout experience. They have gravitas.
They hold weight, yes.
The 1970 Galaxy mobile home is a massive, tangible sculpture. I respect the tings. But taking a Sharpie to a compostable coffee cup, documenting the precise minute you throw a piece of trash into a bin in Munster, Ireland.
I know how it sounds.
My cynical modern internet brain looks at that and screams, isn't this just a highly intellectualized form of digital hoarding? Isn't this just a person who is so terrified of letting anything slip away that they are clinging to microscopic pieces of garbage to feel secure?
I think your skepticism is completely valid on the surface, but it fundamentally misunderstands the neurological mechanism of what is actually happening here.
Okay, correct me.
Yes, if you just look at the raw action, logging a thrown-away coffee cup looks like hoarding. But hoarding is about a pathological fear of losing the physical object. Hoarders keep the physical trash because they believe the object itself holds the security.
Right.
This is different. This is action design research applied to a traumatized nervous system.
Okay, I am willing to be convinced. How does throwing away a coffee cup act as an intervention for trauma?
We have to understand what severe, prolonged emotional distress, especially combined with housing instability, like the home-to-homeless tour implies, does to human cognition. It severely distorts your perception of time and memory.
Distorts it how?
When your brain is in pure survival mode, or when it is actively disassociating to cope with overwhelming pain, you stop recording memories chronologically. You lose your sense of existing as a continuous entity in time and space. Days blur into months. You look in the mirror and you feel untethered, like a ghost haunting your own life.
Oh, wow. You lose the narrative thread. You can't remember if something happened yesterday or 3 years ago because your brain just stopped filing the paperwork?
Precisely. So what does a person do to prove to their own malfunctioning nervous system that they actually exist? They leave a deliberate mark.
A mark.
By taking a permanent marker to a disposable, meaningless cup, by painstakingly logging. At 15.45, I acquired this object. At 16.10, I marked it. And at 16.18, I destroyed it. The creator is executing a profound psychological intervention.
I'm starting to see it.
They're driving a penitent into the sheer cliff face of reality. They're screaming into the void, I was here. In Munster, Ireland, on April 28th, at this exact minute, I existed. I had a cup of coffee, I occupied physical space, and it mattered enough to generate data.
Oh, wow. So the physical cup itself is completely irrelevant. It really is just shit. It's the data of the cup that matters. The act of timestamping its destruction is a radical act of self-validation.
Exactly. They aren't keeping the trash, they literally log the moment they throw it away. What they are preserving is the proof of their own continuous trajectory through time.
That's incredible.
And there is a quote buried in the source material, a reflection from a video titled Fizz Story to Fizz at Play that captures this exact psychological evolution beautifully. The creator notes a fundamental shift in their process, moving from telling stories to designing the conditions to tell them.
Designing the conditions to tell them. That is a massive paradigm shift, because if you are just telling a story, you are recalling the past. But if you are designing the conditions to tell a story, you are actively building the architecture of your future.
Exactly. The creator isn't just making art to express their feelings anymore. By transmuting their boots, their coffee cups, and their exact timelines into this brutalist, interactive system, the designer has fundamentally become the artifact.
The designer has become the artifact.
Riordan's ongoing, minute-to-minute lived experience is the art piece. The Fizz Story EXP website is merely the gallery where the data of that existence is displayed.
That takes the concept of a digital footprint to a level of intimacy that most of us would find terrifying. But it creates this incredibly organic bridge into the next phase of the architecture.
It does.
Because if the RATART lane is entirely focused on preserving the physical artifacts and the data of the past, whether that is 3 grueling years in a pair of boots or 8 fleeting minutes with a paper cup, the next protocol we need to discuss is entirely about seeding the future.
We are shifting from the meticulous preservation of personal memory to the active, deliberate re-engineering of human connection. We need to talk about the system known as #pretips.
Pretips. The archive defines this concept as tagged cache, shit plus tings. Gratitude held in circulation and anticipation. And the sociological context the creator provides for why this specific system was built is deeply compelling.
It really is.
The text states that Pretips was developed partly as a direct response to the disappearance of physical cache circulation in modern society, and the subsequent loss of small, spontaneous human interactions that once moved alongside that currency.
It is a brilliant sociological observation baked seamlessly into an art project. Think deeply about what society has lost in our rapid transition to a purely digital, frictionless, tap-to-pay economy.
We just tap our phones and walk away.
Exactly. Physical currency was never just about the transfer of financial value. It was a physical vector for community connection. Sociologists talk a lot about the importance of weak ties in a healthy society.
Weak ties, like acquaintances.
Yes, the brief, casual interactions you have with a barista, a busker, or a stranger on a train. When you handed a physical bill to someone, your hands briefly met, you made eye contact. That piece of paper carried the physical traces, the literal dirt and oil of the community it moved through.
Yeah, that's so true.
As we eliminate cash to make transactions faster and cleaner, we are simultaneously eliminating those microfrictions. We are losing those tiny, vital moments of serendipity. The pre-tip system is a deliberate architectural attempt to artificially inject that lost serendipity back into the physical world.
And because this is PhysStory EXP and everything operates on action design research principles, this isn't just a casual suggestion to hand someone a $5 bill.
No, it's highly structured.
There is a strict, deeply codified, 6-step protocol for executing a valid pre-tip. And the terminology used for these steps is just fantastic. Let's walk through the mechanics of it.
The protocol begins with step 1, which the system calls the boom/spark. This is the genesis of the action. The site describes it as the exact moment you are moved by an artist, a person, or a specific place. It is the spontaneous flash of inspiration where you feel a deep sense of gratitude that demands physical expression.
Which leads immediately to step 2, the mark/tag. You take a piece of physical currency, a note, and you physically mark it, tagging it into the PhysStory loop, dedicating it to that specific person or place that sparked the gratitude.
And here's where the psychological magic truly happens. Step 3 is called the FIZZ/POP.
Yes. The explicit instruction for step 3 is bubble it, carry it, hold it for the moment. You do not just give the cash away immediately. You are required to carry this physically tagged gratitude around with you in your pocket or your wallet.
You hold it in a state of active anticipation. Then comes step 4, the tip/deem. This is the moment when the serendipitous encounter, the sudden need, or what the site calls the next bubble finally arrives. The universe presents the right moment.
Then you execute step 5, the DRAP/SPLT. You release the marked bill into circulation, you hand it over. And the archive notes something crucial here. Record becomes the ting.
The record becomes the thing.
The digital log of you dropping the cash becomes the permanent artifact in the brutalist archive, while the physical cash leaves your possession forever.
Which brings us to the final phase. Step 6, the find/retag/loop. This is the release of control. It is the hope that the loop continues somewhere, somehow, someone else, as the tag bill travels on its own independent journey through the global economy.
And to prove this isn't just theoretical, the archive provides a specific, meticulously logged example of a pre-tip in action. The data shows a pre-tip that was dropped in Limerick, Ireland. It was tagged on March 11th, 2025, and held in anticipation until it was finally deemed and dropped on July 19th, 2025.
Over 4 months later.
It was dedicated to an entity or person named Aaron Gill. The creator held on to this physical expression of gratitude in their pocket for 4 entire months before the right moment presented itself to release it.
And before we analyze the psychology of that 4-month wait, we must note the strict ethical framework the creator provides for this protocol.
Oh, right, the rules.
They explicitly state, respect the local lore. They acknowledge that international currency laws vary wildly regarding the defacement of money. They advise users to utilize temporary ink, removable tags, protective sleeves, or external stickers instead of permanently defacing currency if it violates local laws.
That's smart.
The mandate is clear. Respect the peace, respect the people, respect the laws. It demonstrates a profound awareness of the larger systemic structures they are operating within.
It's an incredibly thoughtful framework, but I have to admit, I look at this process and I immediately want to poke holes in it.
Poke away.
It feels to me like a highly modernized, slightly over-engineered version of the old romantic trope of putting a message in a bottle.
A classic literary device. You write your deepest thoughts, cork the bottle, and surrender it to the tide.
Right. But when you do that in the ocean, there's a certain poetry to the vast emptiness. Doing this with physical cash in a hyper-capitalist economy in 2026, it doesn't feel like tossing a bottle into the open ocean. It feels like taking a fragile glass bottle and placing it on the pavement in the middle of Times Square during rush hour.
Ah, I see what you mean.
My pushback is, what is the point if the intended recipient never sees it? What happens when that tagged bill is used to buy a sandwich and the cashier immediately deposits it into a bank ATM, where a machine scans it, flags the marker as a defect, and the central bank shreds and incinerates the bill?
This is a very likely scenario.
The physical serendipity is instantly crushed by the automated financial system. Doesn't that completely defeat the purpose of the exercise?
It would absolutely defeat the purpose
Yeah.
if the goal of the protocol was a guaranteed trackable delivery. But that is where the psychological genius of this system subverts our modern expectations.
Okay, how so?
We are so conditioned by Amazon tracking numbers and read receipts on our text messages that we demand proof of delivery for everything. But the archive anticipates your exact anxiety.
Yeah.
In the introduction to the pre-tip section, there is this incredibly poignant, liberating quote. It says, "Some pre-tips are handed directly. Some stay bubbling for years. Some are deemed needed before the moment. Some disappear into the loop completely. Not every pre-tip needs to be found. Not every story needs proof."
Not every story needs proof. That is a massive departure from the rest of the site, where everything is timestamped to the minute.
Exactly. What that specific line tells us is that the psychological value of the pre-tip is not located in the final transaction. The value is entirely generated in the anticipation.
And the waiting.
The healing mechanism is located in step 3, the FIZZ/POP. Think about the neurology of carrying that physical cash in your pocket for 4 months, knowing it represents your deep gratitude for Ren Gill. It changes the host.
It changes you.
It forces your brain's reticular activating system to constantly scan your environment, looking for the right moment. It keeps your posture open to serendipity. Even if that bill goes straight into a bank's industrial shredder the very second you drop it, it doesn't matter. The pre-tip has already successfully completed its job on the person carrying it.
Wow. It actively rewires your brain to look for opportunities to be generous. It takes gratitude, which is usually just a fleeting invisible thought, and turns it into a literal physical weight in your pocket that you have to interact with every time you reach for your keys.
It creates physical friction for a positive emotion. We try so hard to remove friction from our lives, but friction is what makes us feel alive. I really challenge anyone analyzing their own habits right now to think about this.
Yeah, you listening right now.
When was the last time you carried physical, tangible proof of your gratitude for someone? Not a quick text message you fired off while waiting in line for coffee, not an automated calendar reminder to say happy birthday, but a physical object that you carried with you day after day, just waiting for the exact right, spontaneous moment to deliver it. The pre-tip system exposes a massive deficit in our modern emotional landscape.
It makes you want to immediately grab a sticky note, wrap it around a $20 bill, write a thank you to someone who impacted your life, and just carry it for a month just to see how the weight of it changes the way you walk into a room.
It's a beautiful practice.
It is a beautiful, disruptive concept. So we've explored the physical objects, the boots, the compostable cups, the circulating cash. We understand how the architecture handles tangible anchors, but human existence, especially during recovery, is largely internal. It's chaotic, it's abstract. So we have to examine how this brutalist system handles the overwhelming influx of invisible human thought and raw emotion.
Yes, we need to transition back into the life lane and specifically explore the voice of the archive. We need to analyze the section known as #SayWeta.
Say WHA, which is defined with characteristic bluntness as sayings of things said. If you want to understand the chaotic internal monologue of PhysStory.exp, this is the repository. And true to the rigorous action design research methodology we established earlier, the creator hasn't just dumped a stream of consciousness diary onto a web page.
No, it's categorized.
They have built a meticulous, highly structured emotional tagging system to categorize abstract human thought.
It is essentially a brutalist taxonomy of the mind. Let's look at the specific tags they use to categorize these thoughts. You have operational tags like, say, art, say, WRK, say, IRL for in real life.
Standard stuff.
But then we get to the deeply emotional categorizations, say, CRY, say, FUN, say, SMRT, and say, IDK, which stands for, I don't know.
The entire messy spectrum of human emotion forced into these stark, unyielding tags, and the archive provides us with concrete example of what actually lives inside these buckets. Let's start with the Say CRY tag. The quote logged into this category is, "His husband's eyes swam behind tears while he allowed his dutiful sheriff self to intervene." The metadata meticulously notes that this is a quote pulled from Hugh Howey's science fiction novel Wool, originally published in 2013, and it was tagged into the Phys story system by xLU on March 26, 2026.
A deeply evocative line of published literature, categorized under the emotion it elicited, CRY.
Then we shift to the Say SMRT tag, the repository for smart things said. The quote log here is original to the creator I observed myself, therefore I am myself. It is attributed to xLU, dated 2019.
A fascinating existential twist on Descartes, I think, therefore I am. It morphs passive thought into a statement of active, deliberate self-witnessing, which is incredibly fitting for a digital architecture built entirely on self-reflection.
It's a very heavy philosophical statement, but then we look at the, say, IDK tag, the bucket for the unknown, the confused, the uncertain things said. And the quote preserved here is simply, Viva la moment, also attributed to xLU 2019.
Viva la moment.
Now, I have to point out the glaring juxtaposition here. Viva la moment is spelled with an A, V-I-V-A-L, a moment. It's grammatically mangled Spanish mixed with English. It's a bit goofy. It sounds like something you'd yell at a bar at 2 a.m. It's just a passing silly catchphrase.
It's very casual.
And yet, within this system, it sits in the exact same architectural structure as a profound quote from a best-selling sci-fi novel about a weeping sheriff and a heavy philosophical treatise on existential self-observation. It feels like walking into the Louvre and finding a profound philosophical text written in crayon on a diner napkin hanging next to the Mona Lisa.
That's a funny image.
Why does this system give a goofy misspelled catchphrase the exact same architectural weight as high literature?
Because that juxtaposition raises a profound question about how society conditions us to value our own internal experiences. In the outside world, whether in academia, corporate life, or on a highly curated social media feed, hierarchy is everything.
Right, there's always a ranking.
We are taught to place the published sci-fi author at the top of the intellectual pyramid. The philosophical musing sits respectfully in the middle. And the goofy, misspelled catchphrase you blurted out to a friend in 2019 is hidden away, deleted, or suppressed because society deems it cringe or unpolished.
Right. You proudly put, I observed myself, therefore I am myself in your Twitter bio. You absolutely do not put Viva la moment on your LinkedIn profile.
Exactly. You curate for external validation. But in recovery design, within the concrete walls of FizStory EXP, external hierarchy is completely abolished. The architecture does not judge the intellectual pedigree of the source material, it only records the authenticity of the emotional resonance.
It just tracks the feeling.
If a line from a dystopian book cracked you open, made you cry, it goes in a bucket. If a silly, grammatically incorrect phrase you yelled in 2019 perfectly captures the chaotic feeling of stepping into the unknown, it goes in a bucket. They are given the exact same weight because they are both vital, authentic data points of a human surviving.
It's a complete democratization of the self. There is no better or worse thought. There is only what happened and what was felt.
It is. And what's truly remarkable is that this flattened hierarchy perfectly mirrors the neurology of how our brains actually store memories.
Wait, really?
Yes, the human brain, specifically the hippocampus, does not file memories chronologically in neat, alphabetized folders. It doesn't separate the highbrow literature from the lowbrow diner napkin moments.
So it's all just jumbled together.
The brain stores memories associatively, binding completely disparate events together, based entirely on the emotional chemical signature attached to them. By using rigid tags like CRY, FUN, SMRT, and IDK, xLU has essentially built a brutalist external digital model of a human hippocampus.
A digital hippocampus.
When they navigate their own site, they aren't searching by when things happen, they are searching by how things felt.
That is wild to think about. They've built an external hard drive for their emotional state that operates on the exact same logic as human memory. And that realization leads us, inevitably, to the final, most complex piece of this puzzle. We've mapped the 4 lanes of the architecture, we've examined the physical artifacts, the cache moving in anticipation, and the flattening of emotional hierarchy. But this archive isn't a static museum.
No, it is highly active.
It isn't just sitting on a server collecting digital dust. The creator is constantly, aggressively breaking and rebuilding their own history using emerging technology.
We have reached the final stage of the methodology. We have entered the loop.
The loop. This activity takes place largely in the lab and work sections of the site. categorized under hashtags like BrutAreCRC, the Brutalist Recovery Archive, and Fizzy System. This is where the creator focuses heavily on the protocols, the processes, and the loop systems. And what stands out immediately, and what I really struggle to wrap my head around, is the creator's intense reliance on artificial intelligence as a reflective tool, specifically heavily integrating the ethos of Web3.
Let's briefly define what Web3 represents in this context, because it's crucial. Web3 is fundamentally about decentralization. It's a movement away from massive corporate platforms owning your data towards a model where the individual creator owns and controls their digital artifacts and their own architecture.
Taking back ownership.
Exactly. Reclaiming that digital autonomy perfectly mirrors the psychological process of reclaiming autonomy after trauma.
So they own the space entirely. And within that owned space, the source material notes they are heavily using AI, specifically Google NotebookLM, to process their life. They take all of this messy, bold, profoundly human data we just talked about, the tag boots, the thrown away coffee cups, the sci-fi quotes, the goofy catchphrases, and they feed the entire archive into an AI language model.
The whole thing goes in.
Then they instruct the AI to generate audio casts analyzing their own website. And then they take those AI-generated reflections and post them back onto the website as new video artifacts.
It is an incredible, almost dizzying cycle of input and output. Let's look at the specific video artifacts listed in the Brutalist Recovery Archive that were generated this way.
The first one is a video titled Brutefest, or the Brutalist Manifest. The site description says it's an action design research in action. ADR deep dive, and a slide deck reflection on the www.fizzstoryx.com early summer launch 2026. So the creator used an AI to reflect on the launch of the site that the creator built.
Then there is a second video titled Brutal Recovery. The text describing it reads, a reflective look at www.fizzstoryx.com and its future in recovery design Web 3 and beyond. And it specifically, almost gleefully, notes that the AI has errors but a good overview.
And the third video is called Bold Mess. It's described as a short AR reflective look at the FizzStoryXP.TCOM 2026 summer site launch and its system architecture. And again, the creator explicitly acknowledges the flaws, noting some wrong bits, but sure, look, it's only silicon.
It's only silicon. That is a brilliant, grounded reminder of the tool's inherent limitations, which the creator is embracing rather than trying to hide.
Okay, here's where my brain starts to short circuit, and I really need to argue as a premise a bit.
Please do.
Using an AI to analyze your own deeply personal trauma recovery website and then posting the AI's analysis back onto the website as canon, it feels like walking into a carnival hall of mirrors. You are looking at a reflection of a reflection of a reflection. Doesn't this feel slightly dystopian?
I can see why it feels that way.
Are we looking at the actual lived experience of the creator, Riordan? Or are we just looking at an algorithm's hallucinated interpretation of the creator's data? Where does the messy, bold human end and the cold silicon system begin? Doesn't relying on AI rob the recovery process of its humanity?
I understand the dystopian dread, but that dizzying, disorienting feeling you're experiencing is not a flaw in the system. It is the exact intended result.
The intended result.
You're experiencing the friction of the loop. To understand why this isn't dystopian, we have to go back to the core mandate that is splashed across the ALB section of the site. 6 blunt words that define the entire project's lifecycle: build, tag, ship, break, loop, repeat.
Build, tag, ship, break, loop, repeat. Okay, let's break down how the AI fits into that sequence.
This sequence is the ultimate synthesis of corporate action design research and human psychological recovery. First, the creator built the system, the 4 brutalist lanes. Then, they labeled their life, they tagged the boost, they logged the trash, they categorized their tiers and their catchphrases. That covers build and tag.
Right.
Then, they put it on the open internet. They made their private survival public. That is ship P.
And then comes the break, which is usually the part people try to avoid.
Exactly. Most people want their narrative to remain intact. But by intentionally feeding their shipped site into an AI like NotebookLM, by willingly letting a non-human silicon entity interpret their deeply personal trauma and design choices, they are intentionally breaking their own tightly held narrative.
They want it to break.
They know the AI will get things wrong. It will hallucinate. It has errors, as they noted. It will completely misunderstand emotional nuances. It will reflect a distorted, alien version of the truth.
And instead of being offended that the AI got their deeply personal life wrong, instead of trying to correct the algorithm to protect their ego, they embrace the distortion. They take that broken reflection and use it to start the whole process over again. That's the ELO.
And then repeat. It is a perpetual motion machine designed for psychological processing. We have to look at the pathology of trauma again. Trauma is incredibly insidious because it often locks a human being into a singular, unyielding, concrete narrative. The traumatized brain repeats a loop. This terrible thing happened to me, I am permanently broken, and this is the end of my story. It is rigid.
It's a total dead end.
Yes. By forcing their narrative through this brutalist AI reflective loop, Riordan ensures that their story can mathematically never become stagnant. The Hall of Mirrors isn't meant to trap them in narcissism. It's meant to constantly generate new angles, unexpected perspectives, and alien ways of understanding their own survival.
That's fascinating.
When the AI misinterprets a memory, it forces the creator to view that memory from outside their own pain. The system literally takes on the burden of breaking the trauma narrative so the human nervous system doesn't have to carry that weight alone.
The system breaks the trauma so the human doesn't have to. That is staggering. I came into this looking at the brutalist design, the Web3 references, and the AI integration, and I thought it looked cold. I thought it looked like a machine. But what they have actually done is take this hyper-technical industrial methodology and prove that it can be the warmest, most radically self-compassionate tool imaginable. They built a machine that holds their pain when they can't.
It is the ultimate manifestation of recovery design in motion. It operates in the space between technology and biology. It is messy. It is incredibly bold. And at its very core, humming inside the brutalist architecture, underneath the tags, and deep within the silicon reflections, it is profoundly, unbreakably human.
What an incredible journey this has been. We have covered a massive amount of philosophical and technical ground today. Let's try to briefly recap the map we just traversed. We started by stepping into the stark, exposed wire structure of PhysStory EXP, understanding how the creator stripped away the slick, Instagram-polished veneer of the modern internet to build 4 distinct, brutalist lanes of existence: lab, life, play, and work.
We examined the physical anchors, the artifacts of survival known as RATART. We traced the geography of a pair of buck buttes across years of hardship in multiple continents, and we learned that logging the exact 8-minute lifespan of a disposable coffee cup isn't hoarding, it is a radical, necessary staking of a claim in space and time. It is the proof that the process is visible.
We analyzed the sociological mechanics of human connection through the pretip protocol, learning that carrying tagged physical pash in a state of active anticipation rewires the brain to look for serendipity, and that the magic is in the holding, not just the transaction. Because, as the archive says, not every story needs proof. We explored the So What archive, where we saw the hierarchy of human thought completely flattened, proving that a line of sci-fi literature and a grammatically mangled diner napkin catchphrase hold the exact same architectural weight because they both carry authentic emotional truth.
And finally, we saw how the creator fearlessly feeds this entire beautifully messy, highly sensitive archive into an artificial intelligence, using silicon distortions to intentionally break and rebuild their own narrative in an endless healing loop of recovery. Build, tag, ship, break, loop, repeat.
It is a massive framework to digest. And as we wrap up, I want to pose a thought directly to you. While it is highly unlikely that you are going to go out tomorrow and code a sprawling, brutalist digital archive to document your own personal dropout experience, or start feeding your private diaries into an AI to generate slide decks, the truth is you are actually engaging in the mechanics of recovery, design, and memory making every single day.
You are constantly making micro decisions about what physical and digital objects to keep, what to throw away, what thoughts to suppress, and how to tell the story of your own life to yourself and to the world.
Which brings us right back to that rusted time capsule we imagined opening at the very beginning of this deep dive. I want you to imagine that it's not Riordan's time capsule buried in the sand. Imagine it is yours. If you were to stop right now and deeply audit your own digital footprint, and I mean really look at it without flinching, open your phone, look at your camera roll, the links you have bookmarked, your text message history, the disorganized notes app where you type things at 3 a.m. Look at the data you are leaving behind. What kind of system is it naturally forming?
Are you intentionally building a structure with boundaries that serves your psychological growth? Or are you just passively accumulating data?
Exactly. Are you just accumulating a mountain of digital shit, letting corporate algorithms dictate what you see, what you save, and how you feel? Or are you intentionally tagging your tings? Are you creating deliberate anchors that prove you were here, that you survived your hardest days, that you felt things deeply, and that you participated in the physical world? If someone were to scrape your personal data 100 years from now and reconstruct the architecture of your mind, would they find a sanitized, perfectly curated, frictionless profile designed for targeted marketing? Or would they find something that is wonderfully complicated, unapologetically bold, and defiantly human? I leave you to mull over what your own blueprint for recovery design might look like.